The Shining is an incredible movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. The atmosphere is incredible throughout the entire film. The fact that it's kind of based on a real hotel as well is super spooky. I went and bought the Blu-ray today, which kind of just inspired me to make this video a little bit. And it's made me do some research on the making of the movie, right? It's this weird sort of encapsulation of eeriness and freakiness and Stanley Kubrick and Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson. And I wanted to share an article that I read about the background of the filming of The Shining, and I think you're going to find it quite interesting. So these are 14 points about the experience as to what it was like for the actors while filming, right? Stanley Kubrick is historically a very difficult director to work with in terms of the numerous takes and his perfectionism and his breakdown of actors. He loved kids. Danny, who plays Danny in the movie, was treated very well by Stanley Kubrick, but he broke down Shelley Duvall. Like, you have no idea. Anyways, let's get into it. Stanley Kubrick drove Scatman Crothers to tears. What a cool name, too. Scatman. Scatman Crothers has a small but pivotal role in The Shining. He plays Dick Halloran, the Overlook Hotel's psychic cook. Although the actor has since praised Stanley Kubrick for his directional skills, the two had at least one tense moment while on set. For the scene in which Halloran shows Danny and Wendy around the hotel kitchen, Kubrick demanded an endless string of takes. Around take 85, a frustrated and exhausted Crothers broke down in tears. He reportedly pleaded, "What do you want, Mr. Kubrick? What do you want?" I think that's just the best, dude. He's crying in front of all these crew members because he's just like, "What do you want from me, dude? Like, what am I supposed to do more?" Bless him. Kubrick required a ridiculous number of takes. Stanley Kubrick knew what he wanted, and he didn't stop until he got it. Doing multiple takes of scenes is a common thing on movie sets, but Kubrick took things to a whole new level. The shot of Shelley Duvall waving a baseball bat in front of Jack Nicholson required 127 tries for the director to feel satisfied. Another shot in which Scatman Crothers explains his character ability to shine to child actor Danny Lloyd was done 148 times. That is insane in the membrane, right? That scene where Shelley Duvall is throwing that bat around, that's a long take. That's a physically demanding take. 120, and it's emotionally taxing, right? This is where she sort of realizes that Jack Nicholson's actor has just gone crazy. She has to be emotionally activated. To do that 127 times, that's insane, dude. That poor woman. Number 3. There was only one chance to do the twins' death scene. Lisa and Louise Burns plays the Grady daughters, those creepy twin girls who are spotted looming mysteriously from the Overlook. They also appear in one of the film's most gruesome scenes, as they're shown after having been murdered with an axe. It's a vital scene, and Stanley Kubrick had exactly one chance to get it right. In 2015, the now-grown sisters told the Daily Mail that the shot of them lying in a pool of blood was one of the last to be filmed. There was only one set of the signature blue dresses they wear, and drenching them in fake blood was to ruin them. The director had to plan very carefully, and there was no room for a retake. Working against his usual multi-take instincts, Kubrick did indeed get the shot he wanted and produced one of the picture's most memorable moments. Number 4, Jack Nicholson wrote one scene based on his own personal pain. The screenplay for The Shining is credited to Stanley Kubrick and Diane Johnson, based on Stephen King's novel. However, one scene was written by the movie's star, Jack Nicholson, and he went to a dark place to find the words. In 1986, the actor told the New York Times that he penned the scene where Jack Torrance chews out his wife after she interrupts his writing, using his own real-life pain as inspiration. While writing a different movie, Nicholson's then-wife distracted him, and he behaved like a maniac in response. After relaying that to Kubrick, the director wanted to include something similar in the film. Nicholson volunteered to write it up since he'd already lived it. That's terrible, man. That scene is just so uncomfortable, and he's sort of like yelling at poor little Shelley Duvall. Jack Nicholson slept on the floor in between scenes, so pretending to slowly descend into lunacy can be tiring. and Jack Nicholson expended a lot of energy conveying his character's unraveling. In 2015, Louise Burns, who plays one of the Grady daughters, told The Independent that Jack Nicholson was so exhausted that he would fall asleep on the floor in between scenes. I mean, that kind of makes sense, you know? They were filming like days, nights, shit like that numerous times. Bro, I'd nap wherever I could. Take a nap while you're taking a poo, bro. I still do that sometimes, you know what I mean? Secretary had to type one phrase onto hundreds of pieces of paper. The clue that proves Jack Torrance has gone mad is revealed when his wife Wendy peeks at the book he has allegedly been working on. Instead of finding a manuscript, she sees hundreds and hundreds of pieces of paper bearing the same sentence, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Stanley Kubrick wanted the scene to be visually unsettling, which meant that the audience had to see writing on a large number of pages. His personal secretary, Margaret, was instructed to type that phrase onto 500 pieces of paper. This was before the day of printers, bro. You had to do that shit by hand. Damn, that is intense. You make one mistake, gotta start it again. I didn't know this. A fire destroyed much of the set. So The Shining was filmed at Elstree Studios in London, and the massive scale of the Overlook, the story's fictional hotel, necessitated a large number of sets. Late in the production, a huge fire broke out at Elstree, destroying 2 sound stages in full. One of those sound stages housed sections of the faux Overlook, and the blaze caused filming to be halted until the set could be rebuilt. That's pretty interesting. In 2014, Stanley Kubrick told his widow, he's dead, told BBC that the director was actually grateful for the forced break, as it gave him a chance to take a breather during the otherwise very intense production. This was nice. I quite liked this. I thought this was very sweet. Danny Lloyd didn't know that he was making a horror movie, so Stanley Kubrick actually kept that from Danny throughout the whole filming process. The Shining is an intense movie with its elevator full of blood, creepy twin girls, and a madman lead character. Clearly, the content might prove troublesome for children, which perhaps explains why Danny Lloyd, who plays little Danny Torrance, wasn't aware that he was making a horror movie. As an adult, he told The Guardian that Stanley Kubrick never explained the film's plot to him. The child actor believed that he was simply making a movie about a family living in a big hotel. Lloyd was also kept out of scenes that could have potentially traumatized him. For the scene in which Wendy carries Danny as they run terrified through the hotel, he says his co-star Shelley Duvall held a life-size doll in his place. As one can imagine, Lloyd was pretty surprised when he finally saw the film at a more mature age. That's nice, huh? That's sweet of him. Bless you, Stanley Kubrick. You an angel, Brez. The real hotel wouldn't let Kubrick use room 217, so the exterior of the fictional Overlook Hotel is actually the Timberline Lodge, located in Mount Hood, Oregon. It was chosen for its snowy location and suitably atmospheric look. It is super nice. Before the hotel's owner agreed to let Stanley Kubrick feature his establishment, he made one specific request. The script called for some scary things to take place in room 217, and they asked Kubrick not to use that number, as they were worried that the guests would be too scared to stay in their room if they saw the movie. The director agreed, using room 237 instead, since that room number didn't really exist at the Timberline Lodge. No way! Didn't know that. Number 10. Kubrick's fear of flying prevented him from shooting certain scenes. So Stanley Kubrick was notoriously very afraid of flying. I didn't know that. So he filmed his movies in London, where he also lived. That made it a little difficult for him to direct shots that couldn't be replicated in his hometown. Exteriors for The Shining were photographed in Oregon and Montana, where Kubrick refused to go because it necessitated flight. A separate crew had to shoot all the outdoor imagery for him, which was a little bit kind of out of pocket for him because he was so notoriously hands-on. He didn't like to hand anything over to anybody, but he did that. Shelley Duvall said working with Kubrick was unbearable. Stanley Kubrick was notoriously very hard on his actors. Some tolerated his obsessive quest for perfection, but others crumbled under the weight of his expectation. Unfortunately, Shelley Duvall fell into the latter. Roughly 6 months after the film was released in 1980, Duvall told film critic Roger Ebert that working with Kubrick was almost unbearable due to the excessive number of takes he requires for even the most simple of shots. She added, "I had to cry 12 hours a day, all day long. The last 9 months straight, 5 or 6 days a week. I was there for a year and a month." Additionally, Duvall felt that once the film was released, all the attention was focused on the director and her co-star Jack Nicholson, and that her work was largely overlooked. Which is very sad, right? She became a bit of a recluse after that. You never saw her in anything. You know, the movie made her famous, more famous than she was, but she's right. People cared about Jack Nicholson and Stanley Kubrick in the beginning. Now people care about it because she's become such a recluse. And I think she had the hardest job out of all of that. You know, there were these interviews that I read about how Shelley Duvall felt that she was personally victimized, that she was personally bullied. Think about the scene where she's running outside in the snow. Practically, Stanley Kubrick needs a lot of takes. She needs to look like she's just in casual clothes, so when she's outside there, she's going to be cold, right? Everybody else is in thick coats. She had to retake that scene numerous amount of times while freezing. And if she complained, Stanley Kubrick would moan at her. So I totally get it. Number 12, Kubrick changed the ending after the film was already released in theaters. The Shining ends with Wendy and Danny escaping, leaving Jack behind frozen in the snow. Back inside the Overlook Hotel, the camera slowly zooms in on a framed photograph that shows Jack at the New Year's Eve ball in 1921. However, at that point, a slightly different ending was in the works. Frequent Pixar director Lee Unkrich runs a fan site dedicated to The Shining and posted some cut pages of script that detail an alternate ending. In this extra scene, Wendy wakes up in a hospital and is told by Jack's boss, Stuart, that no evidence of the creepy thing she reported was found at the Overlook Hotel. Stuart then gives Danny a bull similar to the one Jack plays with early in the movie. 1 week after The Shining opened in theaters, Stanley Kubrick had a change of heart about the 2-minute coda. He ordered the scene to be cut from all prints and destroyed so that it could never be reinstated. Number 13, 900 tons of snow were used of salt were used to simulate snow. The Overlook Hotel is a huge place with a massive hedge maze outside. The climactic scene finds Jack Torrance chasing his son Danny through the maze, which is covered in snow. In real life, the snow is fake and was made out of formaldehyde and roughly 900 tons of salt. In some spots, the salt was 30 centimeters deep. Trucking all that salt in was a major chore as he was trying to maneuver actors and cameras through it. That is insane. And this was my favorite one. Jack Nicholson almost axed someone for real. So when people think of The Shining, the image of Jack Nicholson wielding an axe for the pivotal "Here's Johnny" scene probably comes to mind. In the scene, Nicholson's character is out for blood, but his final assault almost became horrifically real. While preparing to film the sequence, the actor got a little bit carried away. First, he began jumping around so that he could get his inner craziness flowing. Then he picked up the axe and started furiously swinging it around, nearly whacking a crew member in the process. The poor worker had to jump out of the way to avoid getting hit. Luckily, nobody got hurt, and Nicholson's performance clearly benefited from his total commitment to the role. I love that. I absolutely love that. As I said, it's an incredible film, and the making of it is so interesting. I do feel really terrible for Shelley Duvall. I mean, Jack Nicholson went on to have an enormously popular career, and I genuinely do believe that it all really started with that movie. But Shelley Duvall disappeared. Shelley, if you're listening to this or you're watching this, we love you, babes. Come back.